Well, hello, I'm Mike Winlo, Managing Director and CEO of Emyria. We're a clinical stage biotech developing new medications for patients with unmet needs focused on neuroscience and mental health. And I'm really excited to tell you a little bit about our programs today and why I think we're such an exciting investment. So Emyria is focused on neuroscience and mental health, and we have two platforms that we're developing to address issues in those domains. The first is an ultra-pure cannabinoid delivery platform. We're using ultra-pure cannabinoids. We have created an advanced delivery formulation. We have a number of products that take advantage of that formulation. And our first and leading program, EMD RX5, is already in phase 3 clinical trials, pursuing a number of global registration opportunities. And we have other programs coming up behind. We also have a substantial preclinical R&D pipeline powered by MDMA-inspired drug discovery, where we're taking MDMA, otherwise known as ecstasy, as our source of inspiration, and we're making changes to that molecule to develop new treatments to address a range of unmet needs in neuroscience and mental health. What gives us an edge in both of these programs is that we have carefully studied the clinical effects of cannabinoids in real patients through our clinical service subsidiary, Emerald Clinics. We operate a number of clinics around Australia. We operate a telehealth service, and for 3 years, we've been treating patients with cannabinoid medicines for a range of unmet needs. But we've also been collecting really high quality clinical evidence with those patients to understand what's working and what's not in which patients. And we're taking those insights and they're helping us develop our formulations and pick indications to which we can pursue registration opportunities. We also have a really unique MDMA library, one of the world's largest and most exclusive and unique set of compounds related to MDMA that we have developed in partnership with clinical and medicinal chemistry experts at the University of Western Australia. And finally, we have a tremendous team of biopharma executives who have had successes registering FDA-approved drugs and other successes around the world, helping guide and inform our team on this journey. Of course, we have a really strong IP library backing that up and some terrific support from key investors, including 10 Mile, and we're part of Andrew Forrest's first cohort of funds, or companies, I should say, backed by his healthcare-focused investment fund. So let's talk about our cannabinoid program and why we think it's really unique and why we think it's set for really terrific success. We've focused on ultra-pure cannabinoids. The trouble with cannabinoids is, although they're incredibly promising as medical treatments for a range of conditions with a very well-established safety profile, most cannabinoids typically have variable purity in that they come from a plant, and it's very hard to control what you're actually getting in your cannabinoid medicine. And so purity is a concern. The other concern is most of the cannabinoids today come as oils, which can spill. You have to give them through droppers or gel caps, and there can be batch-to-batch variation in those dose forms as well. The other thing we know, having studied cannabinoids closely, is the bioavailability, that is how much drug is actually delivered to the bloodstream, can be very, very low. It is noted as low as 6.5%. So of all that cost in buying these medications, and when you take one of these medications orally, you're only getting about 6.5% delivered to the bloodstream where it can actually do work. So there are two major problems with the dose forms alone. The other big challenge with cannabinoids is that there isn't really great evidence for where they should work most effectively and for which patients. Most of the research is often conflates recreational cannabis use, and there have been to date very few formal randomized control trials helping inform where these cannabinoid treatments work most effectively. So we have these two challenges: getting better dose forms and getting better evidence. Now, what we know, though, is that some medications that have achieved registration, in fact, there's only been one in the world to date, and that's GW Pharma's Epidiolex CBD medication, which was approved in 2018 for seizure disorders. It stands alone as the only example of a registered CBD medication that's made it through formal regulatory pathways. It took that company, GW, 20 years of clinical development, nearly $2 billion of investment, but they were rewarded for that effort by being the first registered medication. And that company, GW Pharma, was acquired by Jazz Pharmaceuticals in February last year for $7.2 billion US. So with that as the shining example, we know that the formally registered, highly pure cannabinoids that are backed by evidence have tremendous commercial potential, and that's what we're focused on developing. But we want to be better than the incumbents, which is why we invested in a CBD delivery platform, which we call EMD RX. And our first dose form using that technology, EMD RX5, is already at phase 3 clinical studies. And we were able to show using this dose form that we take highly purified, ultra pure CBD, developed in a lab, not grown out in the field where things can affect quality and can create variation in the medication. So our ultra pure CBD has the kind of purity profile that the FDA and major regulators in Europe require. We're able to develop unique delivery technology to improve the bioavailability of this medication as well. That is, how much actually gets delivered to the bloodstream where it can do work. And we're able to show that we're able to meet the delivery of Epidiolex, but have lower variation, have excellent safety and tolerability, and actually have higher doses delivered in the hours between 3 to 8 when you want your medication to be effective, allowing once to twice daily dosing. So with these advantages, really proudly now taking this drug forward into a number of registration opportunities. As I mentioned earlier, we are already at phase 3 studies, and we are pursuing our first FDA TGA approval for over-the-counter treatment of the symptoms of psychological distress. This is a condition that affects 15% of the adult population. It's the symptoms of anxiety, stress that can affect people. It's more prevalent with patients with chronic diseases. It can lead to sleep disturbance, GI upset, and a range of other unpleasant symptoms. And we believe we can address those symptoms with a low-dose CBD backed by evidence and delivered with our technology. So our first effort is to achieve a registration in Australia for over-the-counter use of this medication. But because we've focused on the purity and the technology, we think we can take our medication, that same dose form, to other global markets which have very strict regulatory controls, like Europe, like the FDA. Because of our real world data, we can also take that same dose form into other indications, and therefore expand the market reach and the potential of our dose form, both by growing the geography of where we can use those medications, but also the clinical use of those medications as well. And what's really exciting about the RX platform is that we're also developing additional dose forms with even better bioavailability and pursuing more serious clinical indications with that, and looking at combination treatments as well. So it's really a terrific platform that's got a huge potential and a lot of opportunity. It is also starting to catch the attention of major pharma, and we're in some early commercial conversations with various development partners on using this technology as well. So that's our cannabinoid program. It's the most advanced, and as I mentioned, it's a clinical stage, phase 3 trials pursuing first registration in Australia. Coming up behind that program is our MDMA-inspired drug discovery program, which we're working closely with the University of Western Australia to develop. This program is really exciting. We take that core molecule, MDMA, otherwise known as ecstasy. Yes, it's the party drug. It's the drug that's currently illegal, but it has some really unique properties which make it a really intriguing and fascinating compound to work with. And it's a drug that's starting to get a lot more attention and show promise as a psychedelic-assisted therapy for major mental health disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder. So what MDMA does quite uniquely is it dramatically raises the release of 3 primary neurotransmitters. That is serotonin, which contributes to feelings of well-being, dopamine, which contributes to feelings of pleasure and satisfaction, and noradrenaline, which is involved in the fight or flight response and involved in activation and alertness. And so MDMA uniquely creates this alertness and positive mood and very strong pro-social effects, that is, intense feelings of compassion and connectedness to other people, that make it a very useful therapy in an adjunct to psychotherapy, a very useful medication, I should say, as an adjunct to psychotherapy for the treatment of really serious and difficult to treat mental health disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder. And MDMA is starting to show tremendous results in phase 3 trials for really difficult to treat post-traumatic stress disorder. However, because of these qualities of euphoria and alertness and the amphetamine effect, we also recognize that it would be preferable if we could control or regulate the extent to which the euphoria and the amphetamine effect play out. And so this as a compound becomes a really interesting technical question. Can we adjust this molecule to actually improve its clinical utility, its safety, and maybe its versatility as well? So we're working with UWA, and we have what we believe is probably the world's largest library of unique MDMA-inspired compounds. MDMA is a great drug to work with because it's small, penetrates the brain. It has many points of diversification, which allow us to change and adjust this molecule in many ways. We know, as I described, that MDMA hits many brain targets, and so there's an opportunity to tune selectivity and create different clinical effects. And so we are really excited to be working with this compound and its potential, and are now at a stage where we've generated more than 140 unique MDMA analogs. We've taken most of those through comprehensive safety screening program and validated that many of them passed the safety screens. We are taking the most interesting compounds from that safety screen work into preclinical studies as well. And now we're starting to differentiate and group our compounds into 3 main categories where we think we're going to have some therapeutic successes, or where we hope to have therapeutic success. And that is as a next generation MDMA-like molecule for adjunct therapy for major mental health disorders, where we might have a faster acting MDMA, for example, or a more potent MDMA to help treat those conditions. We also see potential to treat a range of neuropsychiatric conditions like Parkinson's disease, where selective activity on dopamine might be preferable. And we're also seeing some potential with non-neurological benefits as well, given some of the things we're learning about this compound. So it's a tremendously rich and diverse program that's already showing some really great promise from our early screens. And over the next 12 months, we'll be reading out some of that preclinical work. Which really brings me to a summary of our program here. We have achieved a lot in 12 months, and there's a lot lying ahead of us. We have 10 Mile on the clinical register. We have an amazing biopharma executive in Dr. Karen Smith, who has joined our board. She's the ex-chief medical officer and head of global research and development at Jazz Pharmaceuticals, the company that acquired GW last year. And we also have a terrific data platform, which continues to grow and evolve. On our RX5, we're now into those phase 3s. And so in the next 12 months, we expect to conclude the phase 3 study, submit the package for TGA review, and obtain TGA approval for an over-the-counter medication for our indication next year. In parallel, we also expect to launch and initiate a number of commercial partnerships to help take that RX5 platform across Australia and around the world. Coming up behind that on our cannabinoid program is RX7, which is developed for prescription indications. That program will advance to phase 1 and will launch a US-focused clinical approval strategy for RX7 as well. And on the MDMA front, continuous creation and synthesis is ongoing. So we'll generate more analogs informed by the screening program. We've already launched a preclinical program using a number of global partners. And I expect in the next 12 months, we'll get lots of readouts from those preclinical activities, allowing us to identify a number of really promising leads, which we then will prepare for proof of concept animal studies as a first step towards phase 1 clinical trials. And so that kind of wraps up the exciting kind of update for Emyria. I really encourage you to follow us along, and I want to thank you for your time and interest in our company.